No, I brought everything.
Well, welcome everyone. You're going to kind of get the same spiel, and I'll try to vary it a little and keep it shorter. I knew we might be a low attendance, and that's actually we're going to vary the format a little bit here, anticipating low attendance, partly because people don't know a lot about these boards and what they do. So I'll get to that here in just a minute. I'm Nancy Lockwood. I'm the co-president of the League of Women Voters, along with Lynn Ipina, who is sitting right over here being our timekeeper. We'd like to thank the Albany County Public Library, who provides us the space and helps with the setup and logistics and such, and advertising of the forum. Tonight, our forum is for 3 different county boards that we have. The Albany County Fire District 1 Board of Directors, the Hospital Board of Trustees, and the Laramie Rivers Conservation District Supervisors. All the candidates for these positions were invited to participate. This is a bit complicated, and it's all in our voter guide as well, so you can refresh your memory before you vote. There is one position on the 3-member Fire District Board, and only residents of the Fire District can vote for candidates for, there's only one vacant position, I should say, on the 3-member Fire District Board, and only residents of the Fire District can vote for candidates for this position. There are 2 vacancies on the 5-member Hospital Board of Trustees, and all city and county residents can vote for these candidates. And the Laramie River Conservation District Supervisor Board is a 5-member board. 3 members must live in the rural area.
Sorry.
Okay. one member in the urban area, and there's 1 member that is an at-large position. Good?
Yeah.
Okay. There's 1 vacancy for the rural area and 1 vacancy for the at-large position this year. However, no candidate has filed for the 1 rural seat. There's been some rumors circulating that there would be a write-in candidate that would publicize that, but we have not seen that. And I just talked to Mr. Shine here, and he said at this point he hasn't heard anything official about a write-in candidate. But for your information, for the write-in candidates to make it to be elected and count as being voted for, the spelling of the name has to be identical. So any variation wouldn't be like 2 different people. Just bear that in mind. And I think that in all local races, a candidate moves forward if they have 3 or more votes. Does that sound right, Judy?
Doesn't say so in the
Doesn't say-
statute. It just says they cast lots if there's
They
a
cast
tie.
lots. Okay, that's different. It's a primary election then, that it's
Yeah.
3 or more. That only applies to primary. This is our last forum for our local candidates tonight. However, there will be a candidate forum for gubernatorial candidates next Thursday evening, October 25, from 5:15 to 6:45 at the Arts and Sciences Auditorium on the UW campus. This is a co-sponsored event by the State League of Women Voters, the Wyoming Public Media, Laramie Boomerang, UW Political Science Club, and the Political Science Department at UW. Just a brief reminder that we are recording this, and it will be on our website, so we also would like to remind you that we do not allow others to make recordings of this event. You can do still shots on your camera. On the back table, there are brochures regarding the league, including our membership brochures, and we'd like to invite everyone here to consider joining our league. In addition, there are free copies of the Wyoming State League publication, A Look at Wyoming Government. This is your kind of hot time opportunity to get them while they're free, and I think we're working on a new edition. Is that right, Susan? In the works down the pipe, so we'll update it. Candidates have also provided some information and literature about themselves, which is also available on the side table. I see Katie pointing over there. The general election will be Tuesday, November 6th, with polling places open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You may also vote early by completing a ballot at the clerk's office or by requesting an absentee ballot from the clerk's office beginning was beginning back September 21, and that runs through November 5. The election information can be obtained from the county clerk's website or from the Wyoming Secretary of State's website. If you have not registered to vote or need to change your voter information, you can do so at the clerk's office through October 22, and you'll need a picture ID to do so. You can also register or change your registration after October 22 through the 5th of November if you also cast an absentee ballot at that time, and you can register or change your registration at your polling place on election day. And in addition to voting for elected officials during the general election, there is also 2 other initiatives on there, a 1% general purposes tax that we vote on, as well, or their ballot initiatives, a 4% lodging tax. In addition, 4 judicial retentions for judges in districts A and B, and 2 circuit court judge retentions are on the ballot. We have prepared pro-con flyers regarding the 2 ballot issues, the tax issues, which are on our back table. We were working on a judicial retention, but I don't think that's finished yet. The League does not have a position on either of the taxes or on the judicial retentions. On the table at the back here on the side, you see these pink slips of paper. These are sample ballots. The clerk has informed us that the Fire District No. 1 director race, which is who we have here tonight, should not have been included on the city precinct ballots, which includes precincts 13-1, 13-2, 13-3, 14-1, 45-1, 45-2, 46-1, and 46-2. Votes cast for Fire District No. 1 director on these city precincts ballots won't be counted because city residents are ineligible to cast a vote for the Fire District directors. Also, Tony Lopez's name appears on the ballots, as the ballots had already been printed before his recent passing. Any votes cast for him will not be counted. The Republican Party may name someone to fill his nomination. I haven't heard that at this time, that they have done so. If they do, those choosing to vote for this person will need to do so by writing in the name as a write-in candidate. We ask that you not take the sample ballots with you, as they're the only copies. There's also ward precinct maps on the side over there, so you can look up which precinct you are voting in by your residents. At this time, I'd like to give the opportunity, if there's any other candidates here tonight, to stand up and introduce themselves. I'm looking around, I don't think we have any at this point. For tonight's forum, we've changed the format just a bit, as I was mentioning. I sent to the candidates, but I understand some hadn't looked at their email, so this will come as a surprise to them. We will still take questions from the audience, but we will begin with 2 questions provided to the candidates in advance of tonight's forum. These 2 questions, and they will be posed again to you by our moderator. What are the responsibilities and duties of the board for which you are running? And 2, how will you fulfill these responsibilities and duties? As the candidates here tonight are running for positions on boards that many people know little about, we thought it would be good to have the candidates provide us with information about their board and how they, as a board member, will work to fulfill the mandates of their board. Following their responses to these questions, we'll begin with your questions. And your questions should be directed to the candidates or to be written down and can be submitted at any time. There are pencils and pads and papers in each row of seats, and I shouldn't have said directed to the candidates, it's directed to the positions, not to individual candidates. Raise your hand when you have a question, and a league member will collect the question from you and give it to our moderator. Each candidate will be given 90 seconds to respond. We have a timekeeper who will signal you by holding up a sign indicating the time remaining when you are approaching your time limit and at the conclusion of your time limit. The moderator may edit questions for clarity and appropriateness and may ask further questions to help expand upon an issue. In addition, the moderator may also vary the allowed response time based on the complexity of the question and overall time constraints. The last 20 or 30 minutes of the forum will be given over for informal conversation with audience members, and the League would like to thank each of our candidates that are standing for office. And at this time, I'm going to turn things over to our moderator tonight, Ollie Walter. Ollie came to the University of Wyoming in 1970, is that correct? To teach in the political science and became Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences in '89 and retired in 2013. Welcome, Ollie.
Well, I want to congratulate.
Gotta hold it close.
I want to congratulate the candidates. You know, I'm still teaching a class, and it's to international students in American government. And the United States exceeds everybody else in terms of the number of elected positions in our government. Nobody even comes close. Whether that's good or bad, we'll have to see here. Anyway, let's start out with the fire district, and remember the questions are, what are the responsibilities and duties of a board for which you are running, and how will you fulfill these responsibilities and duties? So, Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Ollie. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. And just so I'm clear, we get 60 seconds for this, or 30 seconds? 90 seconds, okay. So I'm James Lee. I go by Jim. I'm a recent transplant from Washington, D.C., just having retired from the United States Army after 30 years of service, and having worked in the FBI and British Aerospace Engineering. And I decided it was time to leave the Beltway and come retire in southeast Wyoming. And so me and my family, my wonderful wife Gina, and my 5 kids have repositioned here in Beaufort. So it's a pleasure and an honor to be here with the League of Women Voters. Thank you very much for holding this, and thank you very much, Nancy, for hosting us. So the responsibilities I see are very clear, and that is to ensure the fire safety and the medical readiness of our firemen and women in District 1 fire departments, of which we have 5, to make sure that we can service those citizens that live in Albany County in District 1. And if we can do that, and if I can help do that, then that is really the primary responsibility, to make sure they're resourced correctly so they can do their jobs for our great citizens in Albany County, District 1. The way I do that is taking the breadth and depth of my experience as a leader and a manager to ensure that those resources in District 1 are portioned out in an equitable manner. And so that is how I see myself doing that, by listening to the 5 fire chiefs and getting their sound guidance. Thank you very much.
Could you repeat the question, please? Yeah. What are the responsibilities and duties of the board for which you are running? Sorry. What are the responsibilities and duties of the board for which you are running, and how will you fulfill these responsibilities and duties?
Thank you. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this tonight. It's a good opportunity to talk a little bit about the fire district. My name is Art Siegel. I've been a resident of Albany County now for about 13 years. My family runs a ranch out in the Centennial Valley. I've also been a member of the board of directors of the fire district for 4 years now. It's been a very interesting period of time. I've learned a lot, and we've achieved a lot. In my background, I graduated in chemical engineering, spent many years, over 20 as a CEO of a chemical company, and at one point chaired the National Chemical Manufacturers Association. So being part of the having grown up in the chemical industry, safety is one of those things that we always worked on. It was a primary concern. My objective is, in being re-elected, is to continue the steady progress that we've made in fire protection throughout the district. There's a long way to go to come up to raise professional standards and provide an even level of fire protection across the entire district. And that is one of my primary objectives. And I think the programs that we have laid out within the board now will help us to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry?
Thanks, Ollie. Thanks to the League of Women Voters. My name is Terry Rourke. My wife and I, Beverly, have lived in this community for 31 years. I've been very privileged to have received the vote of many of you for the last 4 terms as trustee of the hospital. I'm now running for another term. And the reason I'm doing that is because on January 1st, a major change took place. And that is the Board of Trustees entered into a lease agreement with a 501c3 group that we appointed, local people. You know them. Later on, I'll probably get a chance to tell you who they are. But they now run the hospital. We own the hospital. And they must report to us semi-annually on the financial condition of the hospital, the quality of care at the hospital, and the safety of care at the hospital. And if at any time during that lease period, which is 40 years, we are unsatisfied, we can take back management of the hospital. So we're in the midst of a bold new experiment. We think it will work, but I'd like to give 4 more years of service to be sure that we're on the right track. Thanks.
Thank you, Terry. Bob?
Hi, I'm Bob Shine. I've lived here since 1975, so I guess I have the longest longevity here. And I just enjoy being on smaller boards as part of some of the civic duty which I can give. I've been on Planned Parenthood and Soup Kitchen, and I have just finished 4 years on this board. And I enjoy being on this board. I knew very little about it, but we do a lot of water conservation projects, both in town and for ranches and for wildlife. And having a very small property north of town, I realize how important clean, available water is in Albany County, and it'll be critical to our growth for the foreseeable future in Laramie. So I enjoy being part of cleaning up some of the misdeeds that large corporations did years and years ago, trying to rectify those in the brownfield project here at Cedar and Snowy Range Road, which we just completed. Those are the kinds of things that I think will improve Laramie's quality of life.
Okay, so let's stick with the Conservation District. And here's a question. What change in your job do you expect to see with global warming? What policies would you advocate to adapt to global change? That's all.
Well, as we know, in this summer and fall and right up to now, I'd rather live in Laramie and undergo the changes of I-80 road closure than live on the Gulf Coast or anywhere in the southeast at this time. At least, the worst thing that can happen to Laramie residents usually is getting stuck for a day or two in our homes. At least they still exist when the crisis ends. I think we're going to have global warming here, and I honestly think that people contribute to it. And I think it's going to shorten our ski seasons, and it's going to shorten our irrigation seasons. And since I like to ski still at my ripe old age, it's kind of disappointing, and I think we need to address that actively. And fortunately, through solar and wind, which our board is not directly involved in, I think we need to switch to renewable non-energy.
Thank you. This is for the hospital. Explain the changes. To your degree, you already did that there. Explain the changes in the board. Why would you argue it's better than the situation we had before the new board?
Board of Directors appointed by the Board of Trustees is a self-sustaining board, which means that after a certain period of time, when a board member's term ends, they will appoint a new board member. And what are the advantages? One of the greatest advantages is that we can get people to serve our hospital that would never think of running for election, even though this is a nonpartisan board. They just would not think of it. And I know because I've tried to get several of them who are now on the Board of Directors to run for the Board of Trustees, and they would not do it. So now we have the expertise of a banker, Mary Berman, the Dean of Nursing, Pam Dunnick, the head of a large accounting firm here in Laramie. These are people who wouldn't run for election. Gary Crown. And I think they're going to be able to take our hospital to whatever that next level is. And the problem is, we don't know what the next level is because the government keeps shifting the foundation down here. Thank you.
Why don't we stick with that a little bit now? Terry, why don't you think of put yourself in the other side. What dangers do you, possible dangers do you see in this new setup?
Since it's a self-perpetuating board, it could become some sort of a board that does not have the best interest of the hospital at heart. Other than that, I don't really see any downside, and I frankly don't expect that to happen. There are really, really good people in this community, and they are the people who are on the board. There are people who will be on the board, and so I think this is sort of akin to our decision to affiliate with the University of Colorado Health in terms of making sure that this community and its surroundings have the best possible health care that we can provide.
Thank you. It looks like this is the next one for the fire district, and it looks like Mr. Siegel is probably yours. Why was the Little Laramie Volunteer Fire Department shut down when you started up again?
Well, the Little Laramie Fire Department was shut down in early 2016 when the last group of members quit. That had been, I guess maybe it was 2017, but that was preceded the year before by a big uproar over the firing of one person and two groups forming that were battling with one another. When it was shut down, there were, I think, 4 or 5 former members of the Little Laramie who transferred to other departments or attempted to transfer to other departments. We tried to hold a community meeting. We made a lot of contacts with the local people. They simply didn't have any interest in reforming a volunteer fire department, and to this day, the door is open to form that department, but it's got to be with local people. That's the criteria we've set as a board. That why would we form a new department out there with people that are resident in Laramie and have to drive 20 miles to get to the station? So that's where we are.
Okay, thank you. Another fire district question, on a higher level. How do you expect the frequency and severity related to global warming would affect you, and what effect might it have in terms of your budget and policies? You can both answer that, but you start, okay?
Yeah, so let me first start by, first I think, I want to thank Art Siegel for his service as the director of District 1. He has served in a volunteer position, in a very difficult volunteer position with limited resources for 4 years, and I think we owe him a debt of gratitude. And so now, what I'm here for is to offer you another option, and that option is change. And that option is to integrate the proposals and the ideas of the 5 fire department chiefs to ensure that our firemen and women are outfitted correctly and are always prepared with the best equipment to go fight fires and provide safety to the citizens within the district. With respect to global warming, I will tell you that things are getting warmer. There is factual data that shows that the increase in fires will continue to grow over time, and we need to prepare firemen and women and our EMTs to take care of our forests and our citizens that live in the rural areas of District 1, and that's what I'm here to do.
Okay. Well, this one is,
Do I get an opportunity to respond to
you
that
certainly
question?
do, I'm sorry, excuse me.
Thank you. I'd like to do that. The fire district over the last 4 years has made an enormous amount of progress. I think my opponent's inference is that we have not been taking good care of safety equipment. In fact, the board has been buying these departments regularly personal protective equipment that they didn't have when we took over. In fact, it was, if you looked at the lockers of some of the stations when we took over 4 years ago, they were literally rags that were hanging in some of the lockers. And now we've got structured gear and wildland gear that is readily available for the people. And that's been one of our primary objectives, was to support the volunteer. The feeling being in the previous board, the volunteers themselves were not very well supported. And I think the other thing is that there are elements in the board, or excuse me, among the chiefs that are simply regressive. And the board is trying to move beyond doing everything the same way that we've done it for years.
Thank you. All right, Terry, how would a single payer insurance system help or hinder our hospital?
That's a good one, Ollie. I don't know. I do know that for the first 6 months of this year, we donated $1.2 million of charity care. I mean, this is care that people have demonstrated, and it's not just them saying, oh, I can't pay, because there are people who will say that who can pay. These are people who have shown us their tax records, their income, W-2s, anything else, and they can't pay. And that's a lot of money. Fortunately, we have the mill levy that helps pay for that. Pays for about half of it. So the rest of it, the hospital just eats. Single payer, I can't tell you. Lord knows what's coming down the road with this administration, the next administration. We've seen so much change in the way that hospitals operate that we've got to stay constantly on top of that so that we'll be able to respond in such a way that we continue to survive, and not just survive, but help the surrounding area.
Well, let me continue on that. Wouldn't Medicaid expansion help that, though?
Medicaid expansion would definitely help that. It has amazed me all the years that this has been discussed in the legislature that they will not accept federal money to expand Medicaid and thereby lower that $1.2 million, well, double it if you want the annual amount, that we can't turn anybody away. If you are sick and you need our care and you come to our door, we will take care of you and we will give you the best care possible that we can. And if it costs us $10,000, $100,000, we eat it. But that would really help. And I've dealt with politicians for a long time in my life. And I've never been able to get in their minds, especially collectively. Individually, they're just great people. I like them all. And we can talk to each other. But once they get in a room together, Lord knows what's going to happen next. And, well, what's happened next is they won't take federal dollars. So we eat it.
Okay. This is a real specific question, and I think it must be the Conservation District question. Are you ready? When Harney Street and the bridge was built, there was a fence on the southwest corner of Harney and Cedar. Was the remediation done on that corner? It looked like all that was done is the fence was moved north and nothing was done to the dirt at that location. Is that appropriate for you?
We were part of that brownfield project, mitigating the previous yttrium, I hope I pronounced it right, plant, and that there is a fence around there. It's the fence within which somebody needs to take a lawnmower in there and mow the grass someday. But that required several $1 million of federal money to restore that to where it can be commercially viable now. And we own it. The Laramie River Conservation District owns part of it, and the State Highway organization owns the rest. And that's what we're part of. The Snowy Range Roads project was built.
Okay. Back to the fire district, Mr. Siegel, why don't you go first? Do you think that most citizens know that they support the special districts? How would you spread the word about your services and the costs?
I don't think a lot of people are aware of what goes on in the fire district. And I hope people will look at my website. My business card is over here on the sideboard with my web address. I hope you'll look at it because I think you can see at my website where I list the things that we've accomplished in the last 4 years. You can see the range from financial management to engines to training, all of the various things that we've done. We get about $500,000 in tax revenue. We get another maybe $100,000 in what we call truck money from going out on wildfires. We probably spend about $300,000 supporting the individual departments. And then we have one of our primary duties is to strategically allocate investments to where we believe the greatest need is in the county. One of those that's just been almost completed now is up at Waikola. The station was doubled in size. A new engine is on order. Water tanks have been installed. The next one is this central area, which is totally underserved and has been for many, many years. It got away with it because it wasn't growing. Now it's growing. It's growing very rapidly. The area south of Laramie is growing at 7% a year. It needs more fire suppression capability.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thanks, Ollie. Thanks, Art. Yeah, I agree. I don't think a lot of our District 1 citizens really understand the nuances of what it takes to run the District 1 5 fire departments. And I think they clearly don't understand that one of the initiatives that my opponent is pushing forward now is building a new $2.5 million fire station in South Laramie. Now, there's no argument that South Laramie can use a new fire station. What we're talking about here is scale. When we're talking about asking our taxpayers in Albany County to spend $2.5 million on a new station that will be manned primarily by volunteer firemen and women and EMTs that won't spend the majority of their time in this new edifice that we're about to build on 1 acre in South Laramie. Now, it's clear we need to put a station in South Laramie. The question is, how large a station? Can we modularize the build out over time so we can lessen the tax burden on the county citizens? That's the question. And then can we take those limited resources that we have in the district and apply more of those resources to some of the other rural fire departments in Tie Siding, in Centennial, in Big Laramie, in Beta Vu? And can we reapportion those based on the priorities of the 5 fire chiefs that inform that decision? And that's what I'm talking about here.
Mr. Siegel, why don't you answer that?
Yes, thank you very much. I need to respond to that. Either James has been very badly advised or he's engaging in a big distortion here. We worked with an engineering and architectural firm for about 5 weeks this summer, trying to develop this new station, develop a design. For 4 weeks, we went along and we're looking at $1 million cap, $1 million cap. Yes, yes, $1 million cap. 24 hours before we were going to see the county commissioners, the engineer comes in and says, oh, it's $2.3 million. We canceled the project. They're fired. We're moving on because we're going to find a way to build that station for much less money and provide the service that's needed. It's not taxpayer money. Well, most of the money will come from grants from the state of Wyoming. Only $250,000 at the most is going to come out of fire district per se. So I just think we need to get straight on what we're trying to do, and I personally don't see any loss of revenue going to the other stations. I want you to know, half the revenue that comes into the district comes from the central area, $250,000 a year. These outlying stations have been subsidized by the taxpayers in the central area for many, many years. And what we're going to do is rebalance that. And it needs rebalancing.
Okay. So, Bob, what about you? How would you inform the general population about what your district does?
Well, first of all, we do a lot of restoration of stream bed and prevent erosion. And then we, for the ranching community, which is so important for Albany County, we go in with them on irrigation projects and also water projects that benefit wildlife as well as their livestock. And we clean up some industrial sites like we did at Snowy Range Road and Cedar. That was our biggest project. And we put fallen trees into the Laramie River through town to increase fish habitat and keep the Laramie River from just roaring down through town because I did not know this when I joined the board, the Union Pacific years ago shortened the Laramie River by 50% with their industrial projects from the tie plant through town. They just destroyed the normal habitat of the Laramie River. So just as I was coming on the board, that project ended. And so now we have a documented increased fish habitat on the Laramie River.
Same with you, Terry. What, well, let me ask you. It used to be in the Boomerang that there was a story about the hospital board every other week. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but it was...
No. How about every week?
And now he's running for sheriff.
So, is it good that you move, obviously it's good that you move beyond that, but is there a problem that you're becoming almost too invisible?
You know, Ollie, I don't know. We're still going to have the responsibility of owning the hospital grounds, holding the board of directors accountable for what happens in the hospital, and there are benchmarks. It's not just willy-nilly, oh, that's that sort of good. So it could be. One reason we're dropping down to 5 members is that we don't have this responsibility that the board of directors does now. Although, as trustees, we still have to stay educated about what's happening in healthcare, and we have full authority to ask management, the trustee, the directors, why are you doing this? What's going on here? Even though they give us a semi-annual report twice a year, and I'm going to give this report to the league because it gives the history that leads up to the formation of the board of directors. This was not an overnight decision. This started in probably about 2013.
Okay. All right, let's start with Bob and we'll come clear to the end here. What is the budget of your organization? How much time do you spend, or would the average person on the board spend in your job here?
I honestly cannot tell you what our budget is, but I'm impressed about how sticky our accounting is, and we're always getting reviews. And we live on a mill levy from the Albany County, but I cannot tell you what the entire budget is. What was the rest of the question?
How much time do you spend?
I spend a couple of days a month reviewing the minutes, and then spending most of the day on a monthly meeting at the Conservation District. One quick thing I wanted to say, which involves Terry, was I agree with him that the state should have accepted this Medicaid money. It would have been very beneficial for rural hospitals, and having practiced in the field of medicine here for 27 years, I truly believe that everybody is entitled to medical care. And the fact that our governor, whom I basically like, did not go along with that money, accept it, I thought was in error. And I think when the candidates come to Laramie next week at A&S, somebody, and I'm sure they will, but if they don't, somebody here should get up and ask them that same question.
Okay, let's skip down to this end now. Since only one of you have been on the board, what is your budget, and how much time do you spend on it?
Our budget, our core budget is about $500,000 a year, but for the last 2 years, because of so much involvement with federal fires for which we get paid, we have had income exceeding $1 million. We, as a board member, as chairman of the board, I probably spend at least one full day of every week working on board business. And in the 1 week when we have our board meeting, that might go up to 2.5 days. Our sources of funds are the 3 mills that we get from real estate taxes, and then the money that comes in, the truck money, which is $100,000, maybe $200,000. It was that much last year. Grants and various bits and pieces. One of the things we did in the last 4 years, we created a program called Hauled Water. Using our tankers and tenders, the insurance industry recognizes this, and it's one of the reasons they've given us the lower insurance ratings. We've gone away from cisterns for new subdivisions because they never work. When you're in an emergency, the cistern is either empty or broken. But a truck full of water driven to the fire site works, and we're able to get water on the fire. So Hauled Water is another program. It brought in $27,000 this year.
Yes, Wally, if I could have an opportunity to address the budget. Let's just say the budget is clearly not enough for what it is we're asking these firemen and women to do, on a daily and weekly basis. When you've got volunteers primarily running around the state and interstate putting out forest fires, there's not enough in the budget to get them the proper equipment, to get them the proper support, to pay them on time, to make sure that when they go out and fight federal fires and they spend a week on the fire line and they come back, that they don't have to wait 2, 3, or 4 months for those federal funds to flow back into the budget. They ought to be paid immediately out of the budget that we have. And then those federal funds ought to flow into the budget 6 months later to pay back the budget. But I'm hearing that our firemen and women sometimes have to wait for those federal funds to flow back into the budget. And I really don't think that that's the philosophy that we as citizens of Albany County want to continue to support. And so regardless of the budget and its size, it's the management of that budget and the incorporation of the opinions of those firemen through their fire chiefs to the chairman and the director and that 3-person board that controls all that is absolutely paramount. We had one philosophy in the Army, and that was take care of your soldiers all the time. Soldiers first, mission always. Firemen and women first, and mission always. And that's who we should be taking care of.
Okay, thank you. Terry, same question. How much time do you...
Terry.
Oh, sorry.
How much time do you spend, and what's your overall budget, and where does it come from?
Yeah. Most of our budget comes, of course, from the patients, most from insurance. Our total assets at the moment are $215,636,000. We have operating expense, salary and benefits. Let's take benefits out. We put about $13 million back into the Laramie community every year. So this is one of the major financial operations in Laramie, Wyoming, and Albany County. And it's important that we continue to exist. And you might ask, okay, why do we have total assets? Well, we are building a 3rd floor on our new outpatient center. We are also going to, in the near future, completely rehab the OB/GYN pediatric section of the hospital. When we did the last remodel of the hospital, it was mostly the inpatient wing. So we're not just sitting on that money. we're actually using that money to make your experience better. I hope you don't have to come visit us, but if you do, we want it to be better.
And how much time do you spend a week?
You know, now that the management of the hospital is done by a board of directors, with meetings, I'm gonna guess, because this is all new, maybe 3 days a month.
All right, Conservation District. It's true that most of the mosquitoes in Laramie are produced on irrigation pastures. And what or should the conservation do to reduce the habitat and the pest problem?
Well, we are not directly involved in mosquito control. Obviously, irrigation does contribute probably to some of the breeding grounds of mosquitoes. And I know I pay a small fee to have my fields sprayed by a spray plane in July every year. So honestly, since the majority of this valley is flood irrigation for hay, I don't honestly think that anything can be done other than spraying. That's my answer.
Okay. Back to the fire. You can both chime in on this one. I guess Mr. Siegel, you'll go first. Are volunteer fire department fighters paid, or the fire, or directly, or the fire district commissioners paid? I guess.
We're an all-volunteer organization. The board are volunteers. Our firefighters are volunteers. They are paid if they're on a fire in the local area for more than 8 hours. They are then paid. Sorry, thank you. They're paid $20 an hour. Over 8 hours, they're paid $20 an hour. Some of them choose to go out on these federal fires, and therefore they're paid, and most of them $25 an hour, some of them as much as $40 an hour, maybe even more, depending upon their ratings. But basically, we're a volunteer organization.
So I think the answer to that is it's clearly not enough. When you can go down to the Walmart distribution center and get yourself a job loading boxes at $15 an hour to start, paying firemen and women and EMTs that go out and save lives every day, $20 an hour is probably not enough to pay a volunteer fireman and woman. But more importantly, making a fireman or woman or EMT or safety person wait to get paid after they have serviced our citizens in the district, in the Laramie district, it's unheard of. It's ridiculous. When they go out and they fight fires, they ought to be paid. They and their families should not be waiting to be paid when they go out and fight federal fires for all of us. And so that's really the common sense approach that we need to start taking. It's making sure that firemen and women and EMTs and their families are paid on time. And if you do that, the morale in the fire departments and the volunteers will be high, and you'll maintain that workforce in the fire departments.
Okay, obviously.
I need to respond to that.
All right, go ahead.
There's some misrepresentation there.
So it is a board's policy to pay our firefighters as much as we possibly can as soon as their paperwork is turned in. That takes a week or two, another week or two to get it examined. Our cash balance routinely falls from the 1st of June at maybe $900,000 to, by the middle of September, somewhere around $300,000 because we're paying the firemen as rapidly as we can. We are the only district that we know of in the state that follows this policy. I mean, what James suggests is we should pay them out of hand. Where's that money going to come from? Nowhere else in the state do they get paid until reimbursement from the federal government has taken place.
Okay, this is for both of you. You've kind of, both of you implied that the fire districts are a little bit underfunded. Would you, and I know this is a complicated taxing process, but would you favor some means of increasing taxes to support the fire district?
So I don't think we're talking about increasing taxes. What we're talking about is sound management of the budget and the flow of funds. And based on my experience, having managed multi-million-dollar programs in the Army and in British Aerospace Engineering, there are ways that you can manage fund flow and revenue flows to make sure that the frontline servicemen are always being paid. You cannot run fire departments with volunteer firemen and women and EMTs that are going out to federal fires, spending a week away from their regular jobs, their day jobs, here in Laramie. The majority of our volunteer firemen and women come from the city of Laramie. They have day jobs, and they get called upon to go out and fight federal fires. And they do that willingly, and they go out and they spend a week on the line fighting those fires. And when they come back, they're told, you have to wait until the federal government pays us back for that money. And they've left their other jobs to do that. We cannot expect our volunteer firemen to sustain their families in our citizenry in District 1 in that manner. And that's what I'm talking about.
Well, volunteer fire departments are a tradition all across our country. And they're composed of dedicated citizens who choose to volunteer their time. Within Albany County Fire District Number 1, it's well understood that there may be years when we can't pay them 100% until we get money from the federal government. Now this year, we have paid 100% so far, up to this point this year. It's a job. Going out on a federal fire is not easy work. Typically, it's 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's overtime, over 8 hours. They're getting some really good money. Not everybody chooses to do it. I would say maybe 10% of our firemen choose to do this. Among those that choose, many of them take 2 weeks, their 2 weeks vacation to go out and do this so they can bring in that extra money, and they look at it as a Christmas bonus or an opportunity to do something for their family that otherwise their day job wouldn't allow them to do. They're not being put upon. These are volunteers.
Thank you. All right, let's start with you, Bob. What do you think in the next term of office will be your biggest challenge? And what would you like the public of this audience to remember about what you do in the next 2 years?
Okay, one thing I neglected to talk about were projects within town. We cost share on a lot of projects, gardens, greenhouses, our tree sale, irrigation for gardens. These are all available on a cost share basis. And if you have a project that you think we might be able to support, we'd like to hear about it, and you can make an application. So we always have several, like a half a dozen projects every month that we invariably support. So we have projects, of course, in the county, but we do a lot of work in the city. So I think in the next few years we'll be doing many more of those, and they're all within town, and they help to beautify our city as well. And another thing we're peripherally involved in is supporting the Pilot Hill project, and we're very enthusiastic about that, not only for the preservation of water, clean water for our community, but for the view and for wildlife. I think this is a fantastic opportunity for Laramie and Albany County, and I certainly hope it succeeds.
Okay, thank you.
We're entirely in support of it.
All right, Terry, what are the biggest challenges in the next term of office, and what do you want the populace to remember about you?
I have no idea
Good answer, Terry.
what the next big challenges in healthcare are going to be. I know in healthcare there are going to be increasing advances in genetics, in immunotherapy, but what the federal government will do that affects us, I have no idea at all. I just hope it isn't catastrophic. The thing that I hope that people will remember is not just me, it's the whole board. We've got a wonderful board right now. And I'm sorry my colleague Jim Martincha could not be here tonight, but it's a board that cares very much about healthcare in this community. We use it. Jim provides it. He may use it too. I don't know. HIPAA records require that I don't know. And I don't know about anybody else in this room except my wife. I guess I hope our board is remembered for our affiliation with the University of Colorado Health. They have helped us tremendously. And I hope that the new governance structure works out. I have every faith it will. It was done with meticulous care. And, but we'll be watching because we are the trustees. And if you look at the dictionary, the definition of a trustee is different from the definition of a director. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve?
The question, please.
Well, what's going to be your greatest challenge if you were elected in the next couple of years, and what would you like people to remember about you and your efforts in the next 2 years if you're elected?
I think the greatest challenge before us is to now that we've taken care of many of the problems throughout the district, is to even up the coverage that we have in this very large central district. We need the station. We need much more training in organizational development, and these are things that will give us the strength of organization to deal with all of the problems and all of our responsibilities in the central district. We will continue to apply insightful leadership, looking constantly for opportunities for situations that aren't quite right, that ought to be brought up to a higher level of standard than they are. And that's just part of our ongoing responsibility.
Okay.
So I think the greatest challenge that we have over the next 4 years is taking care of our firemen, women, and our EMTs and safety personnel, and taking great care of them. Because if you take care of them, the other problems take care of themselves. And if you take care of them, Doesn't matter if you have a wooden pine fire station, they're going to go out. And if you think that you're not putting on to firemen and women when they go out and fight federal fires, if you've never fought a forest fire and you've never been on a fire line with a pick and a shovel, you're being put on. And you're being asked to put your life on the line every time we send a volunteer fireman and woman out to the fire line. They're being put on. And their families are being put on, because you ask the spouses of those firemen and women that are going out there, and when they leave for 1 or 2 weeks to go to Idaho or Utah or Colorado to fight a fire, you tell me that they're not being felt like they're being put on. Because I'll tell you, my family felt they were being put on every time I deployed somewhere in the United States or overseas. You're being put on, and they ought to be paid when they're put on. And when you call them to get on, pay them and take care of them and give them the best equipment, the best trucks, the best pay, the best equipment. They're not asking for the best fire station. They're asking for the best equipment and the best trucks, and to be paid on time.
Thank you. Well, frankly, we've run out of questions up here, so I think we'll stop and we can have individual interactions here. I again want to congratulate these gentlemen for their willingness to serve. It's very important to our county and our city, and sometimes I just don't think people realize it. So let's give them a hand. Thank you, and if you want to talk to these gentlemen, please do. One more.
I think I forgot in my opening words, you think after doing it this many times I'd have it memorized by now, but I think I forgot to mention our voter guide. We do have a copy of the voter guide here on the back table, and we've got advanced copies around in the public library, the county clerk's office, a few other places. It's on our website. If you go to the State League website, click on elections, you'll find it under the elections. Don't go to the Laramie League link. Go straight to the top link that's green and says elections on it. There. And it will come out as a pull-out section in the Boomerang, who publishes this for us without any charge. That will come out in Sunday's paper, so look for it then. This coming Sunday, right? Yeah. All right. Anything else? Stacking chairs? Stay around, hang out, and chat with our candidates up here.